is Eva Jackson, but I inserted Perez for my mother's last name. I was born in Nogales, Arizona, May 18th, 1948. Well, my role model was actually my mother. She was a very generous person. I remember we lived right close to the border, so we were like maybe, I don't know, 40 feet or less from the border, and people would come. Back then, the fence was very pliable. People could cut it with their shears. So people would go in and out to work on the American side and go back. And whenever anybody would come by the house, either to ask for money or water or whatever, she was very generous of spirit, and I remember loving that about her, that her generosity, no matter what. We were very poor, but she always had the ability to come up with something to help someone that was even poorer than we were. When I worked for UMOS, United Migrant Opportunity Services, all of a sudden they had funds to hire a veteran. And for that employment or that job, it was to develop a food pantry in Columbia County, Beaver Dam. So when finally the veteran did show up, then he and I were trying, getting things ready, just setting the foundation to develop the food pantry, I guess, finding a place. By the time I left, it hadn't really been running that well, but it had been set up, finding who was going to be donating food and, the mechanism to make it work. It was migrants from Texas, usually, and it was, back then they didn't have, they would take their children out of school, and they would also be helping. So I used to go to the migrant camps. I was given, Planned Parenthood did a training so that I could go to the camps and talk to the women about birth control. And then I worked with UMOS. Also, we developed, and this was the one that I really got to see, a clinic. And it was way out a little bit out of sight of Beaver Dam, where it was for birth control and just women's health. And doctors, residents, last year residents, would go there, and it was every month on Saturday. And we would go and pick up the women. So my job was to go and give them information about birth control and get an idea of what they needed. So when the doctor came, I also assisted him because I had to translate for him. So I was going there giving birth control information. I was really young, like 20, and I was giving information about doing pap smears and birth control to women, in their 30s, 40s, that had never heard of such a thing, or because of their religion would have never done it. But here, under the circumstances, they were really wanting to do that. So I love that part of helping the doctor and translating and giving information. When I worked at UMOS, they said, "Oh, Cesar Chavez is coming. Who wants to go?" And of course I said, "Yeah." So we drove to Milwaukee. And it was just, it was phenomenal in that we were so close to him, and he was just so modest. I don't want to say humble, but just a very modest person, but for having a modest look, and he spoke just, it was incredible. It was just this passion. And I remember one thing he did say about us getting very used to the way things are. He said, think about, you get a big kettle of water and you put frogs in there, or X number of, but he used the frog example. And you turn the heat up, and oh wow, it's from cool to a little warm, to tepid to a little warm, to a little simmery. And he said, and by the time it boils, you won't know what hit them, that'll be it. And basically he was saying, don't accept the little things, because it's like that flame, little by little, they'll be turning it up, and when you're in hot water, there's no turning